Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our monthly .NET MAUI Community Toolkit stand-up. Vlad, how's everything going?
Yeah, hello, nice to see you. Everything is fine. Finally, I'm on my countryside house, so like gardening, fishing. I I finally have some time for relax, so spend my time here. What about you, Brendan? How
That
is
sounds
Australia?
lovely. Yeah, yeah. So I was in or am in Melbourne, Australia this week for work. So it's 5 a.m. right now, but it was great. The conference was fantastic. I fly home, well, start flying home today. I think I land in like 2 days. But no, it's been great. Yesterday was my birthday, so got to celebrate with some of my friends here. And yeah, just had a great time. Just wish I didn't have to wake up so early.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah,
Good
James,
afternoon.
how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I have a new PC now. I upgraded to a monster of a PC. I got a 9950 X3D now, so and 64 gigs of RAM. So I'm hopefully be able to build Maui just a little bit faster.
Nice. Yeah, I did something similar recently. I got the new M4 MacBook Pro and I maxed
Oh,
it
nice.
out with as much RAM as you can get. And yeah, it builds .NET MAUI apps like a dream. Whereas my old Intel MacBook Pro would take minutes to build the same project that my M4 MacBook Pro can do in seconds. It's awesome. Oh, thanks, George. Thanks. It's technically still my birthday back home, so I
Happy
get
birthday.
I get a couple birthdays today. Thanks. So let's jump into it. I'll share my screen, but as soon as I do, I won't be able to see you guys anymore since I just have my laptop with me today. But let's go ahead and pull up the old agenda and need to update that logo. Sorry, Vlad. Should be our May logo. But yeah, jumping
Yeah,
into it. So
yeah. I usually forget how to find the monthly live stream announcement. So I only copy paste from the April and waiting while you're updating to the new link.
no worries. Yeah, we don't have to do that live. Well, I'll circle back to that. No problem. But yeah, I was hoping Gerald was going to be here today so we could chat about this one, but at least wanted to share this with everybody if folks haven't seen it already. The Maui team is taking away privileges from us. uh, we had some special access to the internal classes of .NET MAUI. You can do that in C# by adding the internals visible uh, to either your C# or you could do it in the CS Proj. And so, yeah, I was kind of curious why. I understand there's an issue that says that they wanted to promote the internals that we were using as public, which I love that, but also feels like they're taken away from us, which is a bummer. So yeah, maybe we can get Gerald on next month. I haven't seen him in a bit, so be good to catch up. But I don't know. Have you guys heard anything about this? Have you looked into it at all?
The only thing I've heard specifically was that there was a number of issues where that weren't communicated to us that basically broke the community toolkit a couple of times over the last year. And I think one of the issues is just lack of communication back and forth. And this just solves that problem because we just don't have access then. That's the
Fair.
impression I
Okay.
get. I could be completely wrong though, right? So
Yeah, you can open the issue that this pair fixes. So I think it fixes
Is it this one?
uh,
Oh,
maybe this one or another one. So yeah, we usually see that when something updated in MAUI and we still need to update, but we also now include it in our MAUI template. So we have some version mess, let's say. So our version is always going after after MAUI release. So probably that is why it happens. Also,
Interesting.
like some method
think-
not found, usually it's the most often issue we see in our pipelines.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Because yeah, remember. Well, how could we forget? Yeah, having that's why we include in our release notes that folks need to update to the latest version of .NET MAUI, and this is what the currently supported release is. And so, actually, that does make sense because that's we got a lot of those issues reported on the repo, and we would have to tell folks like, okay, yeah, make sure you're on this version of .NET MAUI and this version of .NET, and here's how you install the workload updates. So, okay, well, that'll be nice. Less
I
issues
believe
for us is always a good thing.
some of those issues might go away with this change, right? So
We'll see. If they don't, then I'll be a little annoyed. But if they do, that'll be great. And that makes a lot of sense why we were experiencing so many breaking changes when the MAUI team was just pushing out point releases, essentially. But okay.
It would be nice if they make that methods or classes public. So we don't need internal visible too, but we can just use it because they are public. It will be the easiest solution for us.
Yeah,
I believe
it sounds
there's
like
some
that's
that are
what they
affect
did.
Avatar too.
Yeah, Gerald opened up an issue on our repo. Here, I can pull that up real quick. But yeah, the big concern I have that Gerald hasn't responded to, I just asked yesterday here, but yeah, I was just curious if he looked at MAUI markup too, because when I looked at the PR that this is circle back, this is the one that promoted some of these to public, and yeah, things like iText alignment element. I know I use that in community toolkit.maui.markup. So just basically hoping Gerald went through the MAUI markup library as well. That one always gets forgotten about. So it's not going to take change till .NET 10. This PR was for .NET MAUI on .NET 10. So we got some time to figure it out.
I think also we're using toasts and snackbar. Also, we have some internals API to get in a main activity or something like that, main window. So we have a lot of dependencies on our internal API now. Yeah, because they have a lot of methods that actually useful, like extension methods, and they are internal for some reason. And
yeah.
that would be
I
nice
know
to
at least
have.
one fix I've done. I've copy pasted an internal method to grab something in media element in order to fix a pathing issue for media share.
Yeah, that one, that was to get the current page. We were using that in the toolkit, but the media element never got the...
There's a newer one that I put in there that's probably, I'm not sure if it's still a pull request, but essentially what it does is it does more with pages, and it pulls in two classes that I just copy pasted, and it fixes an issue with packaged only, because it determines whether or not the device you're using is packaged or unpackaged, and the pathing is different on Windows for each of those.
Gotcha. Yeah, so like I said, we'll have to get Gerald back on the stream to talk to him about it, because seeing that this is merged, I mean, it's not coming till .NET 10, so we still do have time. But yeah, certainly, James, those wouldn't be in here. And again, the point of this PR was to make internals that we were using public, so that we don't need internals visible to anymore. So you'll definitely want to keep that one in mind, James, and you'll want to follow up with the team, because otherwise that PR would be adding duplicate code. And especially if we don't have to maintain code, if they could make it public for us, that'd be awesome. All right, so we'll circle back to that one, but I've got the last 2 or 3 months of my life.
I don't think I've seen a day in here where you haven't spent time on this.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, this is a massive PR. So for anybody who hasn't been subscribed to this PR and following along, we're redoing Pop-Up, or rather, we have redone Pop-Up. Vlad just approved the pull request this week, so I had a hour and a half call with Sean earlier in the week or I guess last week. I don't know what day it is anymore. Before I flew to Australia, I met with Sean to go through everything so that he can update the docs. But yeah, wanted to take some time today to show off what we're doing, explain why we're doing it. And actually, looking at this, we should probably update a lot of this. This is a PR created back in 2023 that Vlad revived recently. And it's like, hey guys, I think we can close a lot of bugs, ta-da, by doing this. So kind of brought it back to the surface, and we're like, yep, you know what, you're right. We have a lot of pop-up bugs, and a lot of it is just because we basically implemented pop-up ourselves, which not a problem, but here, let me bring up some code. Let's see. We can go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. And maybe I'll show how it looks first. But yeah, if I scroll down to our pop-ups page here, ta-da! It basically looks the same, which is good. But what you'll see now with pop-up is it includes this border by default. So make sure to, when anybody upgrades to the next version of the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, run your pop-up first and see how it looks, because you're going to get a border around it by default now, and you'll get this shadow underneath it as well. It's a little subtle. I'm not sure how well that shows up on the stream here, but we added in a border property and a shadow property that when you just say new pop-up or show pop-up async, that you'll get that by default. And make sure that still looks good in your app, because you can always turn it off. You can change it. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But the reasoning behind that was, or the thought was, let's make pop-up look good by default. So if you're first time using pop-up, it should look nice. You shouldn't have to do a lot of styling out of the box. But yeah, let me show you what we did. Let's see. Pop-up, boom. Cool. So the big change we did is, previously pop-up was actually inheriting from element. And actually, if I could find it, let me show you what it looks like on the main branch, do a little side-by-side here. But long story short, we basically reinvented the wheel for pop-up. In hindsight, that was a silly decision, because all it did was cause us headaches and bugs and edge cases. So like, yeah, right now in the current version of the Community Toolkit that's available on NuGet, pop-up inherits from element, which was, it's a baffling choice looking back at it, because pop-up's a view. It should have inherited from view at the very least. And if you look in the .NET MAUI code, view inherits from visual element, which inherits from element. So not only did we not choose view, which we should have, we didn't even choose visual element. And that's why we had to manually add in things like iStyle selectable, iStyle element, because If we just inherited from Vue, then pop-up would have supported things like styles out of the box. But instead, we made it really hard on ourselves. And to be fair, this probably uses is probably a little bit more efficient for the CPU and the memory inheriting here from Element. But the problem is all all those edge cases that we just saw in the PR, all those issues, things like alignment, where's it appear on the screen, how does your content look inside of pop-up? Like, why does sometimes the content go outside of the pop-up borders? Like, all these crazy edge cases kept popping up. I guess, pun intended, with pop-up. And Vlad finally had the idea. It was like, hey, would it make more sense if we just made pop-up a content view? And it was just like, like brain-breaking moment. It was like, yeah, and why why did we do this years ago? So it is a pretty big breaking change, but it will solve a lot of problems because now we're inheriting from content view, and under the hood, when you call show pop-up async, where's my pop-up extensions? The way we display it now is, we'll scroll all the way down. So when you call show pop-up async, the way we display this pop-up now, we're just using the navigation stack. So what's really going on under the hood is we're calling push modal async. So for anybody who's maybe not familiar with a modal page in .NET MAUI, when you call push modal async, a modal page will appear that is essentially like a full screen content page that doesn't have, say, a back button by default. So it forces, it's a way that we can force our users when we make our apps to click a button or take an action. Usually modal pages are used for something like a login screen where like you have to click submit before you can be, or before you're allowed to do anything else in the app. So we're cheating a little bit, but in the best way possible for everybody that consumes pop-up. Because again, before we had to do a lot of funky stuff under the hood to get that pop-up to appear onto your page. Whereas now, this pop-up is essentially inside of its own content page. So we created a internal content page called pop-up page, and there we go, which just inherits from content page. And then that pop-up page is what will display your pop-up. So we're making we're making everything better. We're squashing bugs, but there are some
I did look at the original pop-up, and to me, it was just essentially magic wrapped in code. And now I look at it, and I can actually understand what is actually going on. I mean, I can follow the code, whereas before it was like, oh, that's magic. I'm just going to leave it alone.
There was a lot of magic, and unfortunately that led to a lot of bugs because just tons of edge cases that we had to solve for. And so basically think of this as it's a content page that we push modally where we display your pop-up. But the big changes along with this is you don't have to inherit from pop-up anymore. So check this out. You can call show pop-up async, and you can just give us a view. So we still support passing in pop-up. That's absolutely okay for everybody who currently inherits from pop-up. The current way, the old-fashioned way that we'll probably call it in the future. But now you don't even have to do that. You can just say show pop-up async and pass in a view that you've already created, and we'll put that inside of a pop-up for you. So that's one big win. So in going forward, developers won't have to write as much code. You can basically show a pop-up in one line of code and pass in your view, which will be really, really nice. And then the other thing we've added to show pop-up is this new interface called iPop-up options. And iPop-up options is where you'll now set things like can be dismissed by tapping out a pop-up. You can actually, you can modify the page overlay color. So page overlay color is this background here. So everything behind the pop-up you see on my screen. So if you want this to be a shade of red, or if you want to match the colors to your app a little better, you can do that now. And actually, I should show you, instead of showing the interface, show you the actual pop-up options. Let's see. There we go. So there we go. So yeah, page overlay color, you can change that. The action, this one already exists currently in pop-up. You'll just have to move this action to pop-up options now. So if you want a action to happen when the user taps outside a pop-up, this is where you'll put it in there. And then shape and shadow is now where you'll set this border, the border width, the border color, and shadow is obviously the shadow behind. So if you don't want a border and you don't want a shadow, you can just set these to null. They're both nullable. But by default, we have a bunch of default values that we pass in. So for example, the default border thickness is going to be 2. You'll be able to dismiss pop-up by tapping outside by default, still true. And then you can see here, this is the page overlay color. We're doing a black, but very, very transparent. So 0.3 alpha background color, and the default border color, border stroke is white. And the shape, you can see we're giving you a nice rounded rectangle with, what would you call it? 20 pixel corners. I forget what the proper term is. I just woke up at 4:30 in the morning. So, so pop-up will look really cool by default. So make sure to check those when you upgrade your app. And you can still do all the fun things like, let's see, if we show this like pop-up layout page, if you want to set the pop-up to show up on the horizontal options.start, vertical options.end, you can still do that. You can, we can still customize the height and width of pop-up. Well, don't do it off your screen like that. That's too many pixels. But everything for the most part will be the same. A lot of this is what we changed under the hood, but there are some breaking changes, like I just mentioned with this new pop-up options that you'll be able to call here. The pop-up options is also bindable. So if you pass in a value to us to set a value like on tapping outside of pop-up, you can always just change that property, and that'll be reflected in the current pop-up. So if you want your pop-up to show up without any shape or any border, and then maybe the user taps a button on the pop-up and you want to change it from a square to a circle, that shape is totally bindable. So you can do that as well.
Conjunction?
Right. Yeah. So let's see. Where is that code? Service collection extensions. So yeah, we've also added a bunch of helper methods for you. So actually, I should probably show you what this looks like in our sample app here, which, as always, our sample app is updated to reflect all the latest, greatest changes, so that if anything's kind of confusing, obviously we'll have everything documented, but you can always just come in here and copy paste our code to see how we're doing it. But if I scroll down far enough, there we go. So if you want to add your pop-up using dependency injection, you can say services.add transient pop-up, or we've added the whole suite of them. So add transient, add scoped, add singleton pop-up. We'll add this to your dependency injection container for you. So that's a fun, good improvement. And then we've also updated pop-up service, which this pop-up service was the original intent that Sean wanted to show. The whole original intent of this PR was Sean had a cool idea. It was like, hey, what if pop-up service could show a pop-up without you needing to subclass from pop-up? Great idea. And then all these other ideas on top with Vlad's idea about inheriting from content view all got piled in. So this is a massive PR of ideas. But right, so we'll have show pop-up async. We'll have show pop-up. So if you don't want to await it, no problem. You can call show pop-up, or if you want to return a result, you can call show pop-up async. Let's see what else. I feel like there's probably two or three other things that I'm missing here, Vlad.
Appearing, disappearing, and putting pop-ups in there. I think we had a talk about that, didn't we?
Yeah, so that's let me show you. So there are some new edge cases that we're introducing based on this new architecture. So one is, and I highly doubt anybody's doing this, but just in case you are, if you are calling show pop-up in on disappearing, let me show you specifically what I mean. This will be a known issue. I'll be opening an issue before we close or before we merge this PR to document this one. But if you happen to be displaying pop-up from a modal page, so actually let me pop-ups page go. There we go. So we'll start here. So if you call navigation.pushModal async, which we just did, to now display this pop-up on disappearing page in the sample app, and then in your on disappearing method of your modal page, if you call show pop-up async, this is what it's going to look like now. And there's nothing we can do about this, and it's just it's because of the fact that we now show pop-up as a modal page. So if you're showing, again, this is a very niche scenario, but if you're displaying pop-up from a modal page, specifically in the on disappearing method, well, what's really going on under the hood is .NET MAUI, when you call pop modal async, so for example, that button that I tapped on the on disappearing page, all it's doing is calling pop modal async, which should be popping this modal page, my modal page, from the stack, and it does. But also pop modal async pops every modal page off the modal stack. So because our pop-up shows on top of your modal page, and when you call pop modal async from on disappearing, it'll show our pop-up for a second, and then it'll pop all the modal pages off. So we talked about this, and the conclusion we came to is this is a really, really narrow use case where, honestly, I'd be shocked if any of our developers are doing this, but Sean's aware of it. He's updating the docs. We're going to include this as a known issue. And if this is an issue for you, when I create the issue on the repo, feel free to leave a comment on it, because it was something
George
that
did mention something in chat there if you want to take a look. You said about
just fill me in. I can't see it. Yeah.
Okay. Could we guide the user that they have to cancel the disappearing if they want to show a pop-up, then handle how to then disappear?
Yeah, I mean, really, in your app, just find a better place to call show pop-up is going to be the recommendation. But it's one of those things that we could delay merging this PR for another month, and I could spend another month of my life working on this code every day to try and figure out a way to allow this. But we didn't want this to delay it. So like I said, if anybody's actually hitting this, let us know. But we didn't want to spend any more time playing around with this one.
There is one thing I do want to mention about this PR that's absolutely got me ecstatic. I can set the background color now.
That's right. Yeah.
Without any issues. That was a huge coloring issue I had with quite a few of my apps where I had to find workarounds in order to make everything just look pretty. And now everything's just going to work beautifully. So.
Yeah. And that's Thanks, James. That's hopefully or exactly what I wanted to hear, and hopefully what we'll hear from everybody once we get this pushed out.
Also, I can add that also as with a new approach, pop-up should probably support hot reload. Because we had an issue with the with the pop-up version 1, but now because it's just a content page and content view, it should support hot reload out of the box.
Good call out. Love that. And yeah, again, that's kind of why we're doing this. Well, I mean, you already know that, Vlad, but for everybody hanging out with us today from the community, like that's literally the idea is like, why are we reinventing the wheel? Like .NET MAUI already implements a lot of the things that we were reinventing and having issues opened up for us. So yeah, we should get a lot of stuff for free from this. The other thing I wanted to mention is show pop-up and on appearing. So this is one, and again, we're going to include this in the docs. Sean's our docs guy. He's aware of this. He's already got the notes to include this. But one thing I ran into, and actually, let me show you. So right now you can see I'm basically tracking if we showed the pop-up already, but let me comment out some of this code and rerun this because this was a weird bug that when I first stumbled upon it, it was like, what the heck? Because you'll see in the behavior that when you call show pop-up in on appearing now, that's totally valid and we can do it. But again, remember pop-ups being shown as a modal page. So what happened is you can show the pop-up. Well, there's our on appearing page down here. So the pop-up will appear. Happy days. We can see that here. But what do you think happens when you close the pop-up? An infinite number of pop-ups open. And that's because when you close the pop-up, we call pop modal async, which returns back to your page, your content page, where you then call, or where then on appearing fires again because your page is reappearing. And the funny thing is you can see the behavior here where I was like, the first time I saw this, I was like, what the heck? Like where did the sample app go? Like why is only pop-up shown? Like did it remove everything from
Pop-up is
the
more
navigation?
important than the app.
Yeah, but what's really happening is this is just firing infinitely. We're in an infinite loop here. I bet if I put a breakpoint there, like it's still firing. So there's by this time probably millions of pop-ups being shown. And the reason you don't see our content page behind anymore is literally just because every time we add a new pop-up, it overlays that black background with a little bit more opacity and a little bit more opacity on top. So this is probably going to be the biggest one that folks run into because it's super valid, super common to show a pop-up when a page first appears. So the recommendation is going to be following this workflow where just make sure you don't show pop-up every time. Like you can show it once, it'll totally work from the on appearing method. But this is probably going to be the biggest breaking change that folks accidentally run into because there's just no way for us to detect if you're calling show pop-up from the on appearing method without creating another Roslyn analyzer to look at your code. And again, just didn't want to delay this any further because it does fix so many bugs. So again, this will be documented.
This would be almost like putting a sticky in the discussion groups. Like common issues. Like I never thought about this, but we could put a sticky in the discussion group and stack it with all the solutions, all the common problems. Because I know other projects have done that.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, and like I mentioned, once the docs are ready, we'll be able to merge this PR. And so, yeah, that's a great idea, James. We could just include a link to the docs because we are going to document this. The one other thing I wanted to show that
just one word about on appearing and disappearing. Yeah, and almost in every PR, when I try to add on appearing disappearing, Pedro suggests that we should use on navigated from on navigated to. So probably it's also a suggestion, and I believe it works as expected, right?
Ooh, good question. Let's see. Override on navigated to. Let's do it live. Yeah, it's not a bad suggestion. The only downside is I think on navigated to only works with shell. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm still a little fuzzy on the big difference, but I think that's the big difference between appearing versus navigated to. And yeah, so if an app out there isn't using shell, then I don't think they'll be able to use on navigated to. But yeah, let's see what happens here. Doing it live. Show pop-up on appearing. There it is. Close. Nope. Keeps coming back. So
but at least there is no like infinity like black screen.
Yeah, it's slightly better bug to figure out, or easier bug to figure out. Then your app just disappears.
Yeah.
Cool. Good call out, Vlad. Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So last thing, and then we can finally move on from pop-up. And I feel like I've been working so much on pop-up lately. It's consumed my life. Like I forget what I was working on the other day, but I had to type the word pop a bunch of times for whatever I was working on. And my fingers, because I've been working on pop-up so long and so much, my fingers would just type pop-up by like muscle memory every time I was working on this document. I was like, no, I don't want to talk about pop-up here. So the other big breaking change that you might run into is with pop-up result. So let me show you like what is pop-up result? Well, pop-up result, if you call show pop-up async, we'll now return a iPop-up result for you. And inside of pop-up result is where we'll include two things. One being this bool to say, was this dismissed by tapping outside of the pop-up? True or false? And then also a property called result that you would pass in on. So like when you say pop-up dot close, for example. There we go. So if you say pop-up dot close, you can pass in a oh, no, this is pop-up page. I want pop. There's so many things named pop-up in our sample app. or in our repo in general. Here we go. So pop-up, close. There we go. So, it's pop-up T close. There we go. Whew. Okay, so when you create a pop-up of type T, that means you can pass in a typed result. So if you want to say return an integer value based on what the user does, when you call pop-up close, you can pass in that, say, int. So you can say the user selected 5, and then we'll feed that back via or feed that back to you via the pop-up result. But there's an edge case in here because if the user closes a pop-up by tapping outside of it, which I'll try to do here, you can see it flashing. I've now essentially locked myself out of the sample app for the demo. But yeah, when the user taps outside of the pop-up, well, that means the user didn't make a selection on your pop-up and that the pop-up result is null. There is no result. But the way generics work in C# is that there's no way for us to cast this to null if you give us a non-nullable type. So the workaround we did, and you can kind of see it here, is instead of saving that value of null to result here when we initialize the pop-up result object to pass back to you, we will check to see if, like, is this even nullable? And if it's not, then we do a little something funky here where you won't have a result. And so there's another workflow. Let's see. Pop let's see if I can show it to you on the fly here. So like pop up page. Cool. So there we go. So let's say we did something like this and show pop-up async. That's pop-up service. What's a better way to show this? Are we calling show pop-up async just without pop-up service anywhere? No? Okay, let's do it on the fly. So this show pop-up async, boom. And then let's say you want an integer value back, and we'll just ignore some red squiggles here so I don't have to type in too much code. So you get your result back. So this is a iPop-up result. And so if you say result dot result, let's rename this to make it a little bit less confusing. This is our pop-up result. And if you check the value of result here, well, if the user tapped outside of the pop-up, this will be null. Whoops, where's my pop-up result? There we go. So this will be null, but because you cast this as an int, there's no way for us to cast a int to a null, at least not currently in C# and .NET. Like really what would be nice is I would love a generic constraint where I could say like T is nullable and just force this generic type to be null, but maybe someday we'll get that. But yeah, so what you want to do, instead of just checking the pop-up result, the recommended workflow, and again, this will be documented, will be first, you should say, was it dismissed by tapping outside of the pop-up? Because if it's not, then you'll have a result. So otherwise, the pop-up result will be null anyways. So I include an error message here in pop-up result. So the first time you try to do it, we'll give you a pop-up result exception. And then I'll explain to you that like, hey, the pop-up of type T can't be converted to null. And so anytime was dismissed by tapping outside of pop-up is true, then the result's always null. But you gave us a non-nullable type and we would get a invalid cast exception is really all this what pop-up result exception is. So that's probably the other big breaking change that folks will run into. But again, we've got a hopefully really helpful error messages here that I've put a lot of thought into that you might run into this once. But again, we'll have this in our documentation to recommend this workflow because if the user tapped outside of the pop-up, then there's no result. That means we closed it for you. You didn't give us a result to propagate forward. So I think that's it. And I see we've only got like 10 minutes left in this stream. But Vlad, did I miss anything?
I think you covered everything. I'm just thinking about the previous scenario on appearing. Should we call on disappearing and close pop-up on that? Will it close pop-up automatically and we do not see like a black screen with a pop-up? So if we call pop-up on appearing, should we call close pop-up on disappearing like a pair? Like on navigating we open pop-up, on navigated from we close and pop-up. So they should go together. That's solve our issue. That when you click close, it just not appear. Like what will happen in that case?
I'm not sure what you mean. Like you're thinking we could do something with the navigation stack?
No. It's up to user to call. If user calls something on appearing and opening PR, so he should add on disappearing and close PR after that. PR pop-up.
What?
I wonder if there's any issues with calling a collection view on iOS if you populate it with media elements and on appearing. I don't think we've tested for that. I don't think it's a scenario that anybody will use, but I could just imagine somebody doing that.
I don't know if you can do that in collection views because they use a data template. And I don't think data templates have those overrides for on appearing. But again, like a lot of these edge cases should hopefully go away because we are just using .NET MAUI now. We're not reinventing the wheel. So fingers crossed. I mean, I'm sure we'll get a couple issues opened up as soon as we launch this, but hopefully we've addressed those issues in the docs, or it's a known issue, or it's just a implementation. But oh, I guess one more thing. Where is all right, pop-up.shared? No, is it pop-up shared? Yes. Okay. So the other thing, and hopefully this is kind of the way it works already. So this should be pretty intuitive. But when you give us a horizontal options or vertical options, you can see here we didn't override anything, but in .NET you can use the new keyword to create a variable with the same name. So we're doing this, but under the hood, it's still just using the .NET MAUI margin property. So we're not modifying anything here, but I did this so that we could add an XML doc to let you know that when you set a pop-up's margin, that this actually sets the margin between the pop-up and the edge of the window. So now pop-up.margin affects this space over here, which hopefully is intuitive if you think about this being the pop-up. And then likewise with padding is the padding between the pop-up border, which in this example we show on the screen is white, and the value you give us. So those should be super intuitive, hopefully. And then horizontal and vertical alignment is where you want to display the pop-up on the screen. So by default, we'll center it in the screen. But if you want to display it in the corner, then you can set horizontal and vertical layout options accordingly. Oh, Vlad, anchor.
Could you
we got rid of anchor.
Why do we need new and colon base horizontal here? Why do we need this property here at all? Why can't we use from going from content view?
So we totally are. The only reason for this is so that I could change the documentation around what horizontal options does. Mm-hmm. So like you'll see in IntelliSense here on pop-up horizontal options sets the horizontal position of the pop-up when displayed on the screen, mm-hmm. whereas the IntelliSense for the actual content views horizontal options is all of this stuff from the .NET MAUI team. So mm-hmm. this was literally just a workaround so that we could provide you better IntelliSense.
We just need to be careful what do we need some changes from our side if content view adds new properties, or just fine to have? I see you not overrided all properties, but like overrided.
Well, he used the new keyword, so he's only overriding. In this case, the only thing he's actually overriding directly is the IntelliSense documentation. Otherwise, it's all default MAUI.
Yeah, so I mean, in a sense, I'm creating a new variable that has a name horizontal options, but yeah, under the hood, we're just passing in and getting the value of the content views horizontal options. So it was, just literally to provide better IntelliSense. That's all that one is. But yeah, want to shout this out before we forget. The big breaking change, we removed the pop-up anchor. So in this first release of pop-up v2, we will not be supporting anchor. But again, that was something I've talked about with Vlad, like, could we still do it? And we think so. But again, that could probably take another month or two. And the more time I spend on pop-up, I can't spend on anything else in the MAUI Community Toolkit. So that'll be another known issue that we'll have open. So the workaround for that is you can either go back and copy paste the old implementation of pop-up that we provided in the toolkit, or just stay on Community Toolkit version 11, because updating to version 12 will lose the anchor. And if we get enough feedback from the community that folks need this, then we can prioritize it for a future release. But now I think that's it for pop-up. All right. So
pop-up community stand-up.
Yeah, those 2 items I put there were specifically there in the hopes that somebody would find something better to talk about. But I can talk about them.
Okay, I mean, if we don't have to.
No, I have stuff I want to talk about. I just
okay.
thought somebody would find something better. Those items are the full screen events. It's essentially ready to go. It's. I was hoping you could take one look at it and say, hey, what do you think? It's basically ready to go. It just needs a review.
Gotcha.
And the subtitle support is waiting on full screen events. The subtitle probably could do a review, maybe not on stream, but a review, and looking at it and tell me, because it probably it's a year out of date. So that's my coding cell from a year ago. So it probably could use some significant work in terms of from my end. I'm just not sure where to start because there's a lot of code. Mostly it's because you had requested that I write a way for developers to add their own versions of basically what do you call it? Because it originally supported SRT and VOB subs, and you wanted a specific way for them to implement their own method of doing it. And I added that, and I believe there was questions that were left about string interpolation and stuff like that, and that was from a year ago. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, James, I'm doing nothing but pop up until we get there.
I know. I'm not asking you to do anything right now. But, I'm just reminding everybody that this exists. And if anybody has any suggestions, and this was merely to fill content time. That's all it was for.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. If you think the code needs to be redone, please do it. Because otherwise, you're asking me to do that.
No, I'm not asking you to do anything.
Limited time.
I'm asking you to possibly give your opinion on whether or not you think I should do that, or if it's good enough as is. And I'm thinking like, this was literally just to fill content time until 1 p.m. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Just it sounds like you think it needs to be updated, so please do.
I would plan on updating it. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Vlad, anything else before we call it a day here?
I think no. Everything is covered.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Now that I can see our comments again, I'll flip through it to see some feedback. Hopefully, everybody else is really excited for pop up because it's been a ton of work, and I think it's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, we have a small question from YouTube comments. Any updates on expander animation? Yeah, we have an open PR for that, and we left some. We probably discussed it last month, and we have some feedback about it. So I left a comment. So once the author of PR reply, or I can help him to implement how we decided last month. So probably it will happen after pop-up. Our next priority.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for joining me, Vlad and James, for our pop-up community toolkit stand-up edition. And we'll see you next month, same time, same place, and hopefully we'll have V2 or pop-up merged, V12 of community toolkit released, and nothing but just great reviews flowing in from everybody. So thanks again, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Yeah, bye-bye.